Mr. Welch, sir, with great respect, I work for the committee here. They know how we go about handling situations of communist infiltration and failure to act on FBI information about communist infiltration.
And may I add my small voice, sir, and say whenever you know about a subversive or a communist or a spy, please hurry. Do you remember those words?
But McCarthy gets so angry at Welch's badgering of Roy Cohn that he blurts out the name Fred Fisher.
To do Mr. Welch's request, I think we should tell him that he has in his law firm a young man named Fisher, who has been for a number of years a member of an organization which was named, years and years ago, as the legal bulwark of the Communist Party. And I have hesitated bringing that up, but I have been rather bored with your phony request to Mr. Cohn here.
Little did I dream you could be so reckless and so cruel as to do an injury to that lad. It is true he is still with Hale and Dole. It is true that he will continue to be with Hale and Dole. It is, I regret to say, equally true that I fear he shall always bear a scar needlessly inflicted by you.
You look at Roy Cohn's face and you will see him go, oh my God, no, please no. But McCarthy won't stop. He keeps attacking.
I want to say, Mr. Welch, that it has been labeled long before he became a member, as early as 1944.
And sir, may we not drop this? I did you, I think, no personal injury, Mr. Cole.
No, sir.
And if I did, I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
You could see Joe McCarthy going, what did I do? What did I do? Joe Welch literally has a tear in his eye. This was seen as spontaneous. In fact, Welch had been thinking of this for months. Jim St. Clair, who was second in command to Joe Welch.
All right, so what we were listening to was an excerpt from part of the presentation that Joseph Welch, offered in a hearing, and the voices that we were listening to, the rather like poetically refined voice that speaks in these iambic rhythms quite eloquently is Joseph Welch, and the young man who speaks first is Roy Cohn, Donald Trump's mentor, and of course he's an attorney working with Joseph McCarthy, who's the antagonist, I guess, in this in dialogue or trialogue, if you will, and the reason that we're looking at it is because we're going to engage today. Some of Donald Trump's. Oh, I should say what we're doing and where we are. This is, of course, the 22nd installment of In the Grip of ThermostatAnon that addresses YouTube's censorship of our video In the Grip of MQ-MAGAn, and labels it a conspiracy theory. Though we have been arguing over the last 21 or so videos that it is precisely the opposite. That it is a political satire that engages individuals involved in the production of conspiracy theories and the violence that results from these. And of course, President-elect Donald J. Trump is one of those individuals, as well as Mike Lindell, and Mike Lindell will be configured in our discussion because he was represented in the last image that we analyzed, but he's also represented in the image that they're going to analyze. And he and Donald Trump are in a conversation, and I'll jump to that image. What I want to do is first, frame the context of the image, and I think I think the rationale for playing that particular snippet should become clear from where we go with the image of Mike Lindell and Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's threats to utilize the military against his domestic enemies, those individuals that he sees as hostile to him because we have differences of opinion with him, much like Joseph McCarthy. One wasn't under McCarthy's form of authoritarianism and version of what it meant to be American, you weren't allowed to have a different opinion, and this is of course what censorship is all about. Now, there are probably instances of things that should be censored, and those are things that actually do what the YouTube's policy says that I was doing, and that is the production of conspiracy theories that lead to violence, and the encouragement of stochastic violence, right, and terrorism, that results from working a crowd into a frenzy and hyperbolizing, right, the difference that you have in an opinion into this construct of somehow being an enemy of the state, or an enemy, who belongs to the citizenship of the United States, but somehow, wishes to harm the United States, through either their ideology or their actions. And of course, there are individuals, there are terrorist organizations, and they tend to be right-wing, they don't tend to be left-wing, but there are terrorist organizations that exist in the United States, and hence we have the expression domestic terrorism. And the argument, I suppose, we are trying to make in this video of ours that was censured by ThermostatAnon is that the meta-multi universe, the meta-multi sci-fi comiverse that configures this particular narrative is an attempt, to expose the conspiracy theories and the production of conspiracy theories underlying and progressing from January 6th. So both leading up to the January 6th insurrection and then what follows, right? The attempt of right-wing politicians, to mitigate and to negotiate our understanding of that event as harm. I mean, J.D. Vance referred to the event as a peaceful protest in a public space, right? Which is far from the truth when you consider that police officers died and that people's personal property was destroyed, federal property was destroyed, and all you have to do is look it up, and you'll see the violence and the mayhem and the weapons that were utilized to produce that violence and mayhem. It was an act of terrorism. Okay, so we're not negotiating that, and it certainly wasn't a peaceful protest. If it had been a left-wing motivated event, individuals, I don't think anyone would claim that it was a peaceful protest in a public space, and honestly, the individuals involved would be doing much harder and more difficult time. And that's something that we'll get into, I think, as we get toward the end of this particular narrative, and there are some images of individuals and how gently they're being handled by by the police at the Capitol, as opposed to Trump's rubber bullets and gas grenades and the weapons that he wishes to deploy along with the military to handle whatever forms of perceived threat that belong to his paranoid experience of whoever it is that for him represents the enemy from within. And of course the enemy from within is one of the his utilization of that expression is one of the motivations for presenting the snippet from the Joseph McCarthy trial, because it is in fact Joseph McCarthy who utilizes that expression, the enemy from within, first, at least first to my knowledge, and he uses it to describe those individuals that he goes after and persecutes in his witch hunts, and so that's part of the context, and then more of the context will emerge from the imagery and what we associate with it. So we'll begin with that. I think I've said everything I need to about why we're producing this documentation. So let's jump to, let me close this out and jump to the image. This is the next image following what we read yesterday. And I guess Donald J. Trump is speaking here first. Shall it be an armed terrorist Q-MAGAnon insurrection, Mike? And of course, that's exactly what it turned out to be. And Iron Cross Mike is countering, the suggestion and saying, I'm thinking more of a neo-fascist martial law style military coup. And so what is the difference precisely between those two things? Well, I guess an armed terrorist Q-MAGAnon insurrection would be precisely what you basically had on January 6th with groups of white supremacists and other domestic terrorists like the Proud Boys and whatnot, organizing and producing this violent assault on the Capitol. Now, so what's the difference between that and a neo-fascist martial law style military coup? That would be the use of military force, authorized by the president or some agent capable of authorizing it, and against individuals, citizens of the United States of America, right? So the deployment of military force against the enemies from within, essentially, right? Like the perceived threat of citizens protesting whatever it might be that they're protesting, and so that's Mike's suggestion, and then Trump over here says, I'll have my lawyers look into it, and they're both putting their thumbs in the, presumably like for a photo shoot, so that their speech doesn't get recorded. I'm assuming that they're not being filmed, but rather photographed. All right, so this is the headline or caption or whatever you want to call it from this Global News media site, and it says Trump threatens use of U.S. military against political opponents. So though in our narrative, he was suggesting precisely what happened, the use of basically stochastic terrorism inspired hate groups, to support an insurrection. Now in 2024, we have him, utilizing what was essentially Mike Lindell's threat in our meta-multi sci-fi comiverse narrative of these events, and the possibilities, how how to have an insurrection. And I suppose, you know, there are different options that are available for authoritarians. You know, one of which, if one commands the military, right? One of which is the use of military force against citizens of one's own nation. And what's interesting, you know, it's really interesting here, and I've complained about this before. I don't know if I've complained about it in this series, but YouTube has put up these things, and they put them up on some of mine. The Associated Press has called the presidential race for Donald Trump. See more on Google. I don't recall that at all happening when Biden won. Excuse me, in 2020. Does anyone remember YouTube putting these up? I don't believe so. And it's kind of funny. So you want to support like this idea and mitigate what? What are you mitigating? Are there really a lot of people denying that Trump won in the same way that they were? So now that everybody like concedes that Trump actually did win, they put this up. But when there was this dispute, an actual dispute, right, based on conspiracy theories, that's why I think this is all bunk. When there were all of these conspiracy theories out there, and everyone that was a MAGAnon and a Q-Trumpist were in this state of denial, you know, about the results of the election and ready to have an insurrection. YouTube failed to put this out. Now that we're not having an insurrection because individuals on the left are basically sane. I mean, that, like, you know, sorry, but that's the truth. The January 6ers are the ones who needed like these types of statements, right? Like now this is useless. So, you know, it makes one question. And plus, like if you ever erase your history, and I have to do this all the time because I have, you know, some sort of hacking experience that creates problems if I don't do it. But if you ever have to erase your history, you know, from YouTube and get like whatever their default settings on your homepage, it's overwhelmingly conspiratorial media theorists. Like it's all Fox News and crazy folks, and this is massive onslaught of disinformation that YouTube disseminates. And the only way to get rid of it, I guess, is to watch other stuff. But if you have to constantly clear your browsing history for whatever reason, and in my case, like I said, certain things don't function unless I do that, right? So I can't see certain things unless I do that. So, you know, again, like my suggestion is that that YouTube is not neutral. And it seems to me that that a wiser use of this little, you know, caption bar and the learn more thing would have been to disclaim like all of the conspiracy theories involving the election results of 2020, rather than this one, where as far as I know, you know, no one is producing the examples of stochastic terrorism suggesting that there should be, you know, a kind of similar response, and that the House, you know, should deny the electoral, you know, results and refuse, right? Refuse to allow the peaceful transition of power from Joe Biden to President-elect Donald Trump. I haven't heard that, right? And we were hearing that all over the place in 2020. So why is this up now and it wasn't up then when it would have been useful and needed? All right, anyway, so that was kind of an aside, but not really. I mean, because it involves, you know, policies and threats of intimidation made on the part of YouTube, and who gets censored and why and how and who doesn't. And to remind everyone, Rudy Giuliani, who was sued, right, for misinformation and for slander and malignment of individuals involved in the 2020 election, and his suggestion that they were passing a USB drive that turned out to be a package of mints, right? But his racist slur associated with that, and he said it was as like it was a vial of heroin or cocaine or something like that. I'm not sure what drugs he used, but clearly an example of defamation of character, and this example of defamation of character led to real threats made upon the members of this family by organizations and white racist individuals, and who actually showed up at the family's house. So this is like the classic definition of stochastic terrorism, right? Well, this individual who was sued, right, and convicted of these offenses, so there's no argument about whether it really happened or not, right? Has a channel up on YouTube, and which I imagine is uncensored. So, like, again, pointing to the irony of what we do and what we point out, and who actually gets censored by ThermostatAnon. So what I'm saying is that ThermostatAnon minimally is motivated by who makes him money, or her, or them, I suppose. But and certainly Rudy Giuliani is making YouTube a lot more money than a contracting fee through Theta, and that's the only reasonable, right, rationale, I suppose, for not censoring them if one is greedy and motivated by money and doesn't care about what happens to individuals. But even so, I mean, the excuse that YouTube's ThermostatAnon protects the YouTube community is still blatantly bogus in light of the fact that those individuals who actually do practice this form of conspiracy theory, race baiting, stochastic terrorism producing use of media, continues to have a YouTube channel, and YouTube is doing nothing to protect the American public from individuals like Rudy Giuliani, right? So, anyway, it is a part of this series, to address all of those contradictions and point out, like in detail, like in relatively easy to follow, but detailed examples of why we believe that a lot of the policy really has nothing to do with the claims that it makes and its rationale for existence, and that its rationale for existence is something else, right? So on to global news and this piece and Trump's use of the expression "enemy from within" and the decision to move on to Iron Mike's suggestion for ways of maintaining power in the authoritarian universe. Let's see, I may have to adjust the volume on this. Yeah.
Scum that we have to deal with, that hate our country. That's
I'll go back.
It's the enemy from within.
There you
All
go.
the scum that we have to deal with, that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
3 weeks before Election Day, and Donald Trump has declared the country's biggest problem to be Americans who don't support him. Going even further in an interview with Fox News.
We have some sick people, radical left lunatics, and I think they're and it should be very easily handled by if necessary by National Guard, or if really necessary by the military.
That Trump would suggest using the military against his own citizens is nothing new. As president, he threatened to use troops to quell the nationwide protests for racial justice in the summer of 2020.
If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
This time, Trump is running explicitly on a platform of vengeance, while demonizing immigrants and vowing mass deportations, also at the hands of the military.
Those people have to be taken out.
The language echoes authoritarians throughout history. Trump's opponents fear it's not just a threat.
I think people really need to look very carefully at what Donald Trump will do if he were ever to be in the Oval Office again.
In a neck-and-neck presidential race, the political strategy is questionable.
He's focused more on turning out the base than convincing people in the middle, and he thinks that that's the way to win.
Kamala Harris's campaign is also running on Trump's words.
Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy.
All right,
The former president hardly seems deterred.
I'm going to turn down the volume on that because I think we've demonstrated what we wanted to demonstrate in relationship. Let me stop this and close this out in terms of this image. And so, you know, in 2020, this option was utilized, and now clearly, you know, this option is an imminent, you know, danger and threat to, you know, anyone who Trump, I guess, fashions to be the enemy from within. And, you know, I think that, as we mentioned before, yesterday, in part of speaking about Joe Biden's, you know, recent blanket pardon of Hunter, and you know, once again, like, I don't think that was the right action to take. I think, you know, personally motivated politics and decisions are something that, you know, shouldn't be a part of a democratic form of government, and that individuals who maintain positions, particularly significant positions, and certainly the office of the President of the United States is a significant position in government, right? Should be, you know, beholden to a higher rather than a lower standard for their, you know, consequences of their behavior than, you know, say an employee of McDonald's or Disneyland. But you know, that obviously isn't the case in our government right now. It seems rather that the kinds of things that one would get fired from, you know, if one had a minimum wage paying, you know, job at McDonald's are precisely what, you know, most of the politicians do every day and suffer no consequences from, or for. But in any case, you know, I don't think that blanket pardon was the right thing to do. But I've expressed the fact that I feel that I understand why it was done. And the reason why it was done is because there are so many threats, right, that are constantly being made by these authoritarian folks. And we looked at you know, some of the threats that were made by Kash Patel yesterday, and he talked about, you know, criminal trials and prosecution and this kind of thing, and here we're talking about the use of military force, you know, to put down, right, whatever expression one disagrees with, and that becomes, I think, you know, extremely problematic, you know, for an individual in a position where, you know, that individual is being specifically and explicitly targeted, right? And And all of these folks, including this one, the president-elect, have made very personal threats against Joe Biden's family and Kamala Harris as well, and Kamala Harris's family as well. And there's the name calling, there's the grotesque name calling, there's the threats of violence and prosecution. And what I said yesterday, and I hold to it, is that Biden made the wrong decision, but he made it for the right reason. And I believe the reason to be that he's trying to protect his family against this kind of presidential, vengeance machine, Q-MAGAnon, retribution machine made, on the part of these, Christian nationalists who apparently believe all of us who don't fall into their little organization and ideology of, whatever else it's called besides, Q-MAGA nonsense, are, Satan worshiping, pizza eating pedophiles, made from, lizard material or something, and need to be, wiped off the face of the earth. And another way of saying that, I guess, is, the enemy within. And if one takes those threats seriously, and I certainly take them seriously, one is the target, the personal target of these threats, and I can understand why someone with the power, right, to protect an individual within one's family would utilize that power. And I don't really necessarily believe that means that that Biden thinks that it's okay that his son did these things that he realizes are wrong. But okay, here's the way to put it, right? Okay, so say that I live in a country and that in that country, it's illegal to smoke a joint, right? And we have examples of this, right? Think about all of the trouble that people get into when they smoke a joint in Russia, and they're held, basically against their will, and it's a lot, right? So if you had the ability to pardon someone, right, who smoked a joint in Russia because you knew the consequences were, way beyond, the significance of the crime, and the persecution and the prosecution of that individual would be, dramatically beyond the justice, right, of enforcing a law. It doesn't necessarily mean that pardoning that individual means that you believe that individual can do whatever they want. It just means that you understand, that if you don't do that a member of your family is in grave peril from folks like this, right, who are willing to threaten the enemy from within with the use of military force, and who are willing to inspire, right, violence against individuals within their own government who they disagree with. I'm thinking about Nancy Pelosi and Big O's, right, performance on Nancy Pelosi's desk. So that's where we are with this image. Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, Iron Cross Mike Lindell, and let's go. Let's see if we can get on to it. The next image. Okay, more of the same. I don't know that we really need to say all that much about this image. Obviously, Iron Cross Mike has now reached stage 77 of the Q-MAGAnon madness. He has the fisheye, and he's been in contact with the either great or ultimate evil. You can see by the drippy tar substance. Here, I think we might have even done an analysis of this image already. These are the My Pillow swastikas that that they come on, and we've talked about his use of the crypto fascist numbers and signifiers. Well, I don't know what's going on here. This looks like he's got some kind of a toy on his desk. I'm not sure if we added that. It looks, oh, it's some kind of like military toy. It looks like some kind of like Terminator or something that he's got back there on his desk. Everybody's and of course this is a violation of is it the Hatch Act or is it the other one? Presidents aren't supposed to endorse stuff. Is that part of the Hatch Act, or is there another one? There's another one. Let's take a look at it. So this is illegal right here. I mean, but of course it's Trump, so doesn't matter. So I don't think the endorsement, regulation or ethical suggestion does fall under the Hatch Act, but I think it's useful to read, what the provisions of the Hatch Act are, because they draw attention to, some of the principles that provide the groundwork, for a democratic election and the legitimacy, right, of what constitutes a democratic election, as opposed to an election that is manipulated by individuals that have power and money and such stuff. So to begin with, this is the Wikipedia site. We'll just do a quick inventory of some of what the Hatch Act forbids, and discuss perhaps why that is so. So we may draw upon recent events in memory and talk about some ways that if even if the Hatch Act hasn't been violated in word by individuals who perhaps don't play a part in the government yet, I'm thinking of Leon Mosquito, that they were violated in conceptual form, right? And that it seems that someone would have stepped up and pointed out and made an example of such bribery, intimidation, and whatever else went on in the interference of the 2024 election. 1939 Hatch Act forbids the intimidation or bribery of voters and restricts political campaign activities by federal employees. And when I would talk about Leon Mosquito, he wasn't a federal employee at the time that he offered $1 million bribe in the form of a lottery to anyone who voted for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. But it seems to violate the spirit of the law and violate the rationale of for the law, which is that in order to have a fair and reasonable democratic election, that votes can't be bought or intimidated or restricted in any way, and that's precisely what Leon Mosquito does. And now Trump wants to make him a part of the government. So this individual who can act in this manner, that is clearly against the interests of American democracy, is being placed in charge of government efficiency. So how is offering $1 million lottery bribe an example of government efficiency? It's efficient at what? It's very efficient at undermining undermining the basic principles of democracy, right? And those basic principles of democracy are the foundation for this Hatch Act. And then let's continue. It prohibits using any public funds designated for relief or public work for electoral purposes. It forbids officials paid with federal funds from using promises of jobs, promotion, financial assistance, contracts, or any other benefit to coerce campaign contributions or political support. Well, again, in relationship to Leon Mosquito, it seems like that's precisely what is going on, doesn't it? And actually, it seems that way in terms of a lot of these individuals that Trump is now, stacking his cabinet with. You recall that RFK Jr., who we consider more or less just a loony, weirdest of the weird, wrongest of the wrong, and most dangerous, but certainly one of the loonier individuals that are being placed in the cabinet, the presidential cabinet at this time. And you recall the offer that he made to Kamala Harris. I will endorse you as president of the United States if you promise to put me in your cabinet. And that kind of quid pro quo offer is specifically, right, forbidden in this particular document. And I guess one could argue that, well, Trump wasn't a member of the federal government at that time, and this technically, applies to federal employees. But can you really argue that? Because he can't place Leon Mosquito and RFK Jr. in their respective government roles until he is officially an employee of the federal government and becomes president of the United States, right? So this applies. I mean, I don't see how you can get around that. Or it will apply once he fills his cabinet with all of these individuals who have given him contracts, have supported his election campaign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's move on. The act also precludes federal employees from membership in any political organization which advocates the overthrow of our constitutional form of government. Well, that's a pretty tricky one when you're talking about individuals like Kash Patel, isn't it? Because he's certainly the rest of the 2025ers, and if we're really serious about looking at some of the recommendations for this 2025 project, it really does exceed the boundaries of the constitutional form of government. So what we wanted to look at and turned instead to the Hatch Act is this guide to the ethics and responsibility of government positions. This is oge.gov, and there it is, the desecration of the sacred Black Hills. I guess that's not something that is considered unethical as part of their use of invasion of sovereign territory. Native American sovereign territory is not an ethical restriction on this list. I find that amusing, but irony abounds. Okay, so this is the abbreviated form endorsement. You may not use your government position to suggest that your agency or any part of the executive branch endorses organizations, including nonprofits, products, services, or people. And of course, Donald Trump did that when he endorsed Goya, and when he endorsed Mike Pillow's or Iron Cross Mike Lindell's My Pillow, and of course, Ivanka is seen here endorsing Goya as well. And Walter Schaub, Director, Office of Government Ethics, says Ms. Trump's Goya tweet is clearly a violation of the government's misuse of position regulation. And the reason she's endorsing Goya is not simply because she thinks Goya is a great product, but it's because the CEO of the company Goya, right, came out in favor of Donald, Trump and his campaign, and so it's a type of if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So effectively, the use of executive office, positions to for the exchange of monetary favors and advertisement and whatever else. And so this image, right, is making reference to all of those things. I believe, in fact, that if I wanted to talk about how this image was constructed, I believe that this is Trump two thumbs upping a Goya product. That's where the image originally had, and I manipulated that image, I believe, to create this scene from our story with Mike Lindell. And I don't believe that Mike Lindell is in this picture, but he was collaged in along with the new product. So I believe that originally Trump here is endorsing Goya, and this endorsement is collaged by contract and fee through Theta, just to further the and thicken the plot of In the Grip of ThermostatAnon.